رسوله الكريم ثم أما بعد. So, mashallah, I saw that there were a few people interested in discussing Eid. And so I guess that was all of you. I saw there were a few people interested in discussing Eid. And mashallah, Yawm al-Eid, the word Eid comes from Aada Ya'udu, which means to return. And it's called Eid because it comes back. It's something we get to celebrate again and again. And it is an intentionally joyous occasion. It's an opportunity to celebrate. It's an opportunity to exchange gifts. It's an opportunity to dine together, to have breakfast together, to have lunch together. And there also is a special prayer that marks the day of Eid. And everyone who is praying on Yawm al-Eid, the day of Eid, is encouraged to come to the prayer hall, right? It's mashallah, it's a whole community function, a whole community event. It's a day that should be, intentionally relaxed. It should be kind of intentionally laid back, festive. The spirit should be one of ease and delight and joy and fun. Once Aisha radiallahu anha, she was playing with the tambourine on the day of Eid in the household of the Prophet ﷺ. She had this tambourine and she was hitting the tambourine, and her father, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he walked in and saw her and he said, "Are you really doing this in the house of the Prophet ﷺ?" Of course, in that cultural milieu, musical instruments, were regarded as a part of a salacious scene, right? Musical instruments were a part of a scene where there was music, there was usually drinking, and where there was drinking, there was usually some kind of sexual misconduct that took place between, men and women, and where that, so it was like a whole thing that they had when it came to how they regarded, musical performances and musical instruments. So of course, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, upon seeing his daughter playing with this musical instrument in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, are you really doing this in the house of the Prophet ﷺ? And the Prophet heard Abu Bakr, and he stepped from the rear of the house and he said, "Ya Abu Bakr, these are the days of Eid. Like, relax, chill. We did not expect this from you," right? This idea that, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, his character was, his disposition was usually very easygoing and just chill. So for him to become, vigilant and critical, in that way, was just surprising to them generally. But the Prophet ﷺ said, "Abu Bakr, chill. These are the days of Eid." So even something like that may be under a normal circumstance, maybe wouldn't have been occurring in the household of the Prophet ﷺ, things were relaxed to, enough of a degree that people could really just enjoy themselves and have fun. And why shouldn't we? Ramadan is intended as an intentionally tense time, right? We spend our days fasting. We spend our nights praying. We're getting up to eat very early in the morning, if we're lucky, right? Some of us don't even make it up for suhoor. We're getting up to eat very early. We spend most of the day, fatigued. All of this is an expression of qabd. It's Ramadan entails, and we embrace it. We embrace it wholeheartedly. We embrace it gratefully. But Ramadan entails some consternation, right? Qabd, you're constrained a little bit, right? You're removed from your normal routine. There's this constraint that, right? And we endure it gratefully and thankfully for the sake of God. After qabd, after constraint, there is always bast. There's always expansion, right? There's always, Sidi Hakim Archuleta, right? The traditionally trained Muslim physician, right? Hakim. He said, qabd and bast, right? Moments of being tense and kind of contracted, and then expanding and being at ease. This is really the rhythm of life. That's how life is, right? You have moments of and then right after that, and then and he said, this is kind of the rhythm of life, and it's best to get accustomed to that. One other insightful thing he said in that conversation was that if you think about a good joke, he said a good joke is always an exercise in expansion and contraction. That the person is telling you the joke, winding you up, and it's like, you're trying to figure out what the punchline is going to be. And then when they give you the punchline, you're right, it's like you get, wait, where we go? Oh, right. So Eid is the expansion to the contraction that is Ramadan. So as we were in the Ramadan, oh man, I'm hungry and I'm really tired and I have a slight headache and my breath stinks, and because of my schedule, I'm not able to be as attentive to my parents. I mean, I desperately need a beard trim myself. I'm not. It's like Eid is the opposite of those. I'm at ease. Things are enjoyable. Things are fun. Things are easy. Everything, this is, Ramadan was, we were very focused on ibadah. On Eid, we're a little more focused on enjoyment. And this is not me. The Prophet ﷺ said, هَذَا يَوْمُ أَكْلٍ وَشْرَابٍ وَبِعَادٍ. This is a day of eating and drinking and family. The Prophet said that ﷺ, like this is like, yes, we have special prayers and all of the other prayers, we have to make them. It's not like, okay, it's Eid, we don't have to pray Dhuhr or something like that. But like, هَذَا يَوْمُ أَكْلٍ وَشِرَابٍ وَبِعَادٍ. This is a day of eating and drinking and festivity. Eating and drinking and family. Right. So, of course, Salatul Eid is always confusing to everybody, including the people who lead it. I think Salatul Eid is one of those things you have to review every year. Okay, 7, then 5. Wait, 7. Okay, I got it right. 7 additional. Or in the Hanafi school, it's 6 additional takbirs, I think, lead in the recitation, 6 to conclude the recitation. So you have 2 different ways of making Salatul Eid. Yeah, but the special prayers, we're encouraged to dress, nicely. That sometimes is a challenge for us as we've become accustomed to business casual for everything, right? There's no, they say in the modern context, there's no situation in which business casual is not okay. And you can dress in business casual anywhere, anytime, and you're fine. We're encouraged to, in whatever cultural way that we want to, men and women both are encouraged to put a little more intentionality into their dress just to mark the festivity of the occasion, right? Doesn't mean you have to be extravagant or go over the top, but, no, but just something that marks the festivity of the occasion. So, we are encouraged to do that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, inshallah. It's a really great time. I hope that I get to see some of you all on, Eid al-Fitr. MashaAllah, it's, I can't remember an Eid al-Fitr in which it was raining in the morning. I remember a few where it rained in the evening, but, usually it's sunny. This year might be a little chillier than in years past, but should be, a bright, sunny day. And, there's usually a good vibe, among the community that's palpable, that you can feel, you can feel it. In terms of an order of business, you want to pray your Salatul Eid after you have given your Zakatul Fitr, right? That special charity that we give at the end or during, the month of Ramadan, that is the equivalent of one meal per person in your family. That is, so everybody in your family has to pay zakat al-fitr, whether they pay it individually or one person takes care of it for, you know, the entire group. Everyone who's fasting. So for me, that would be Asiya, Hadiya, and I, you know, because we're fasting. Najashi and Makita are not fasting. So my zakat al-fitr would come out to about $30, right? So you have to pay your zakat al-fitr, and, you know, and that's it. That's it. Any ideas, questions? MashaAllah, I see we gained a few people. Alhamdulillah. We were at 5 initially and we gained 9, MashaAllah. So anybody have a question, an idea, something like that? MashaAllah.
Do you have any special like Eid traditions that you do with your family?
Yeah, we usually go to breakfast. You know, it's always weird to eat breakfast. You know, after sunrise. You know, you're eating and you're like, "Is this okay?" You know, you're like, "Wait, oh, it's okay, it's okay." You know, it's like, but yeah, we usually always go to breakfast, and I tell you, breakfast never tastes as good as it does on the Eid. I swear. I don't know what, you know, it's like you're eating breakfast and you're like, oh man, these are the best pancakes I have ever had in my life. You know, we also usually visit people. That's very common. You know, I think among Muslim families that, you know, you pay people visits and you go by, you stop by. I don't know how that will work this year with COVID, right? You know, last year we set up a table in front of our house and people kind of cycled through. It was, you know, when we think back on this time, I think all of us will remark, what an interesting time, right? If things actually go back to something that resembles what we understood to be normal, right? Maybe this becomes just the norm. Right? Allah Ta'ala alam. But yeah, we set up a table and we gave people a doodle and we made them, commit to different times. And it was like in 15-minute windows, and people drove by, and then some people just drove by and waved. I mean, it was really, really intense. It was really intense, but it was good that, you know, my children were able to see a lot of their friends, you know, on the day of Eid, which is of course something they look forward to. I think this year the Hyde Park Muslim, not the Hyde Park Muslim Family Circle, Sirat, and the MSA at U Chicago, we're thinking of doing Salat al-Eid on the Midway outside with the PA system. I think I've been designated as the khatib, as the preacher, as the sermonizer. So, you know, that should also be interesting. And then in the evening, we used to, again, I don't know what will happen this year, but we usually take our children to do something fun, you know, Gizmos or Discovery Zone or Odyssey Fun World or Dave and Buster's. That's usually how we cap the evening off, you know, every year. Right? But I don't know, this year, I don't even think those places are open. So I don't know. So we'll have to figure out some new traditions, inshallah. New traditions, inshallah. Does anyone else have any good Eid traditions that they'd like to share, like to talk about? Well, you know, other than eating, I suppose, right? I mean, what really is there to do? If anyone has any questions about anything else too, mashallah, the floor is open. Alhamdulillah. You know, we're just trying to get the most out of the remaining moments of Ramadan, inshallah. Hmm. Well, I have a question. What was the best gift that any of you have ever received for Eid?
Money.
That was really quick and that was really easy. You know what I mean?
SubhanAllah, the ideas are always like, you know, I remember like in Saudi mostly, like we'd always get course, the idea money. And we always act shy at first, like taking it from relatives and stuff. But it used to really like bring joy. Like it was empowering, especially as kids.
Oh yeah, to have your own money, that's huge. You know, the first time I was given money as a gift was for my 8th grade graduation, I think. I mean, like a significant amount of money, I mean, which back then was like $50, you know. That was really, really significant to me. I went to the bank and I exchanged the $50 bill for 50 singles, and I would throw it up in the air in my room, say,
Rich.
I'm rich, I'm rich, you know. I would throw the money in the air. And that was about the time that the notorious B.I.G. came out with All About the Benjamins. And I would wait for the part of the song where he said, all about the Benjis, what? And I would throw my $50 in the air. I'm all about the Benjis, what? And let them come down. You know, it's, you know, our obsession with money is just a fascinating thing. Fascinating. You know, وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. Allah says, and you know, addressing humankind, you know, and you love money violently. You know, yeah. All about the Washingtons, what? You know what I mean? Throw them in the air, let them come down. You know, something that really, you know, is just, I don't know. I have never been able to recreate the festivity of Christmas with Eid. Maybe because we're in a majority non-Muslim country, but I don't know, man. I know that my children, they love Eid and they look forward to it. And this year we have a special gift, you know, planned for them. But I don't know. It doesn't hit the same way. Of course, I mean, you know, Eid is, you know, there's a spiritual connection there. There's a religious connection there. But I don't know. It just doesn't hit the same way.
I remember we used to live in this neighborhood that was very diverse in Saudi, and for Eid, and this is mostly as kids, but I remember I would say that parallel and even maybe a little bit more than the Christmas energy that I feel over here in the West, but we used to have this gathering with everybody in the neighborhood chips in a certain amount of money, and a couple of, you know, families will prepare gift bags for the kids. They'll have all the families make sure that they get gifts for every single, like their kids, and label it. So when they come to this, like the party arena or area, they'll have all the gifts on a table. And there was one neighbor, she was not married and didn't have kids, but she was, you know, metaphorically the Santa there, but she would be at the table, call everybody's name, like every kid one by name, like name by name.
Oh, mashallah.
She'll say, somewhat, I'll have to get up, and she'll give it to me, give me a hug. Parents will take a picture. And of course, there would be gift bags. Yeah, like gift bags. They'll have like the sheets for the kids. They'll have activities and games, and it would be all. And I think I remember as kids, because, you know, it was a time where the parents, the family members, they were all present, celebrating the kids, taking pictures. And subhanAllah, like looking back, I feel like I haven't experienced that in a parallel way, like just the way, you know, the families got together. And then when the kids became teenagers, the teenagers were involved in organizing this event.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, honestly, even Christmas is not, it's not even remotely familiar to me now. Like, you know, when I was growing up, you would go down a block, and if there were 20 houses on the block, 15 would have lights, right? You know, 15 would have, you know, Christmas lights and have their curtains drawn so that their Christmas tree was visible. It was just different. It seems like the weather was different. It was just different, man. Now I feel like, I don't know. And by the way, I'm not talking about from a religious, like it was, you know, they've taken the Christ out of Christmas or not. No, I'm just saying, even just culturally, the spirit felt different. Now it really does just feel like a buying and selling bonanza. I don't know. Something has been cheapened, you know, to me. But those are beautiful memories that you have from Saudi, mashallah. Anyone else want to share? Khalid says, yeah. No, Khalid asked a very good question. He says, do you take your kids out of school for Eid? And maybe as a follow-up, how will you handle Najashi being of Juma age while in public, if you choose to go that route, school? How have you seen people handle that obligation? Whoa, that's a really good question. Yes, I always allow my children to, remain home from school, for Eid, just one day, right? Just one day. They have to go the next day. And that school question is a big one. I mean, I actually converted to Islam when I was a senior in high school. And of course, I mean, I never made Jummah, just, unless, we had Friday, out of school. And it wouldn't have even occurred to me to say, like, I need to go pray. It wouldn't have occurred to me. Most Muslim students I know in public schools, it's just something that, they don't pray Jummah. Maybe they pray Dhuhr, maybe they don't pray anything at all, right? My daughter goes to, we'll come to Donna in one second. My daughter goes to Lindblom Math and Science Academy, and they actually have Jummah on campus, which is due to the pioneering work of this one white American brother named Musa McGuire, who works at the University of Chicago. His children were there, and he wanted them to be able to. His two sons were there, and he wanted them to be able to pray Jummah. So they talked to the administration about it, and they okayed it. So I think that most people, just to be frank about your question, Khalid, most people I know, their kids either just don't pray Jummah, or most people I know, the kids don't. Most of the kids I know in public schools don't pray Jummah, but you do have some students and some parents that have approached, school administrators and have got, the idea of, a 15-minute, 20-minute prayer service, okayed, with the relevant authorities. So that might be a way we can approach that. Yes, Donna.
I was just going to say the same thing that you said, which is my brother, when he was in school, I found out later that him and his friends, like a few of them, they would just meet in the library and pray together. And they didn't make it like an extended period of time, but it was just a way for them to meet on Fridays and pray together and do like a really small bit. And that worked out for them really nicely. And I wish I had thought of it, because I didn't do that at all when I was in school, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's something that, subhanAllah, I remember being in Egypt and talking to some Coptic Christians, and they were talking to me about how difficult it is to be a religious minority, in Egypt. Everybody's Muslim and we're Christian. And, one of the biggest things is, Sunday is actually the first day of the work week in the majority Muslim world. So, Sunday is the first day of I'm coming to Nader's question in one second. Sunday is the first day of the work week in the Muslim world. So it's just like, they don't give us Sunday off to attend church services, and it's just, it's really it's really, really difficult. And I said, it's just like the situation facing Muslims in America, that it is tough to be a religious minority in some ways. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. Ismail said that they had a teacher who sponsored our club at his public school, and they would make Jummah there. So a few different ways of handling it. Nader asked that some scholars have stated that praying Jummah in non-Muslim countries is not obligatory. This is true. You've had a few notable scholars say that, but they always issue that opinion with the caveat that, look, if you have an opportunity to make Jummah, you should make Jummah. If you have an opportunity to make Jummah, right? And you should regard it as an obligation if you have an opportunity. One of the things about, a lot of the places that we work, the American workplace, is that, if, and this is one of the unfortunate realities is that, the higher up you go in terms of from blue collar to white collar, you have much more freedom and much more leeway to, take a 30, 45 minute, run down the DIC, pray, and go back to your office. People in the labor community actually have a much harder time getting the space necessary for something like Jummah. This fatwa is for people like that, who I depend on this job. I'm not able to break away to at that specific time for that length of time that I'm unable to control, right? Because when you go to pray Jummah, you're unable to control the amount of time you will spend. I mean, some khatibs speak for a long time, some speak for a short time, so it's the imprecision of Jummah. It's like I'm going from 1:15 to no later than 2:05. I mean, it's very difficult. So for people in those circumstances, the likes of Yusuf al-Qaradawi, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, people like that have said that, if that person just needs to make Salat al-Dhuhr because of their circumstance, that is something that can be explored, right? But we don't, I don't highlight or publicize those rulings, because I think if you did that, nobody would come to the masjid. But if somebody is really in a situation where they're like, dude, I'm afraid I might lose my job. I mean, I had a friend that delivered for Pepsi. He worked for PepsiCo. And, talking to him helped me to appreciate the sophistication and the very high demand that exists along a major corporate supply chain. He said, man, you can go into any convenience store in America and Pepsi is available. From Appalachia to Seattle, from Alaska to Florida, you can go into any convenience store anywhere and PepsiCo products are available. He said, a lot of people don't think about, people have to deliver that soda. That's what I did. That's what he did for a living. And he said that their schedules were so tight. We have to hit, 40 stores today in the Chicagoland area. We're moving really, really quickly. The idea that he would be able to stop, go to the masjid for, 45 minutes to an hour, that could throw everything off in terms of their route, the supply chain. He, pressed his co-driver, right? His colleague, his co-worker, that, this is something that I have to do. We'll make the time up. Traffic will be okay. We'll still get to our stores and check, every box on our list. Don't worry about it. Well, the co-worker reluctantly went with it. It's for your God, right? I don't want to get in the way of that. So they went with it. Traffic ended up being very bad that day. And some people called complaining because they didn't get their shipments on time and they had to close their stores. And it ended up being really bad. And my friend got fired, man. He got fired, man. I'll never forget that. They called the co-driver in, and because the co-driver was the lead, and they said, what happened? He said he had to go pray to his God, man. I don't want to stand between a man and his God. And they said, okay, you leave. And they called my friend in. What happened? I had to go pray. This job is not for you. And they fired him. He went to CARE. I don't know what became of his lawsuit. I don't know. Maybe he might have won. Maybe that's why I don't hear from him anymore. No, you know what I'm saying? Maybe he won. I don't know. Maybe he didn't win anything. But that ruling that, Salat al-Jum'ah in a non-Muslim country where the prayer is not accommodated, it can be, if a person is just really in a circumstance that I cannot pray Jum'ah, then, they can pray Dhuhr, right? But there actually is no ruling that I can't pray. Even somebody that's working, performing a surgery, they actually should scrub out so that they can pray and scrub back in. I remember someone asking Sheikh al-Sha'rawi, right, the great Egyptian scholar, look, I do ophthalmologic surgery. I'm working on people's eyes, and these surgeries can take 8 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. In the course of performing that kind of surgery, I might miss some prayers. And Sheikh al-Sha'rawi said, what would you do if you had to go to the bathroom? If you had to urgently urinate, what would you do? He said, I would scrub out, urinate, and scrub back in. So your bodily function must be given that right of being accommodated, but your prayer to God can't. And the guy was like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess when you say it like that, right? So the person still should make dhuhr, right? But that only takes 2 minutes, right? That only, from wudu to salamu alaikum rahmatullah, salamu alaikum rahmatullah, maybe that takes, 8 or 9 minutes, whereas Juma, is a much longer and undetermined time. So yes, Nader, that there is a ruling like that, but don't say that too loudly. Don't talk too loudly about that, actually. Don't talk too loud, because the attendance at Juma would dwindle to nothing if people know, well, wait, there's some opinion that I don't have to be here, right? There's some opinion that I can actually not come to these boring khutbahs. Oh, I'm out of here. I'll listen to Omar Suleiman on YouTube and just pray dhuhr. You know what I'm saying? Allahu Akbar. Hafidhullah, may Allah bless him and keep him. Love Omar Suleiman. Other questions, ideas, comments? Reflections. Chat here. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Oh man. Is it too soon to talk about post-Ramadan tips? No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think you should try to maintain your momentum from Ramadan. It's just not, something like that almost belies the special status of Ramadan. If I intend to fast all of Shawwal like it was Ramadan, then what is Ramadan, right? But the 6 days of Shawwal are recommended in most madhahib, most Islamic legal schools. And hopefully what happens is that one becomes habituated to fasting semi-regularly. Fasting is something that, in all honesty, I don't do a lot of outside of the month of Ramadan. I think, being active, exercising, doing a lot of biking and cycling in the summertime, when running errands, etc. That's just very much a part of kind of my warm weather routine or regime. And fasting, it really, of course, it makes those things very, very difficult. So because I like to spend the warmer months outside of doors, walking to a lot of places, riding my bicycle to a lot of places, exercising outside of doors, sometimes going to the gym every now and again, I think fasting is not something that I opt for often. But when Ramadan hits, and yes, I haven't been exercising. I went to the gym today and tried to exercise. I got a terrible cramp and said, okay, I guess that's enough for me. I feel good because I was able to exercise, and I've only been able to exercise maybe a couple times, intentional exercise maybe 2 or 3 times in the month of Ramadan, which is much lower than my regular schedule. But I do gain in other ways. I do feel, more connected and more open and more introspective with my fasting. So coming out of Ramadan, I'm thinking, how can I balance? Of course, I like to do those things that I mentioned, right? That's kind of how I like to spend the warm weather months in Chicago, and you better savor them because, sooner or later it'll be freezing again, right? And this has been, unseasonably chilly, month of May. But I also want to fast more regularly, fast, more often. That's one tip. And everything else. I mean, if you look at what happens in the month of Ramadan, our community really just becomes the best version of itself. There's lots of charitable campaigns. There's lots of social gatherings. Pre-COVID, there would be lots of social gatherings. 1 year pre-COVID, I think I was invited to an iftar at someone's home every day of the month. 1 year. 1 year, there was 1 year in Ramadan, my family and I, we did not prepare a meal for like the entire month. Yes, that month we were certified moochers. We were certified bums. We went around just answering invitations, and all of them were lovely, different cuisines, folks from different cultures. It was, Ramadan is like our community at its best. People hosting, giving gifts at the end, additional prayers. And it's like, okay, on a smaller scale, right? How can we bring some of that into our, regular, communal life and practice? How can we bring a little bit of that in? We probably won't be able to bring all of it in, but just a little more, right? So maybe committing to one Monday and one Thursday, every lunar month, or, maybe committing to, making a couple raka'ats, a couple units of additional prayer at night. Maybe this helps one to reconnect with Salatul Witr. Maybe sadaqah, right? We tend to give our zakah, so zakatul mal, right? Our zakat in the month of Ramadan, and the additional sadaqah that isn't an obligation. But I find that as we consume less, the natural consequences that we begin to give more. Right? As we consume less, I feel like those two have a naturally inverse relationship. As I take less for myself, I give more to others. And as I take more for myself, I give less to others. Although some people are outliers. Some people, the more they take, the more they give. I know people like that too, right? The more stuff they get, the more stuff they give away. So sometimes it's like that too, but maybe becoming more committed to, regular charity. One thing that I have advised many people concerning, but subhanAllah, I find that it's difficult to take my own advice, is, even when we give, money to passersby, Ramadan brain, right? Passerbys, right? Passersby in need. Sometimes it's like that money, even though we know what our schedule is, right? We know we're going to be downtown at some point today. We know that we will probably encounter some indigent people. That money is still given by surprise. Oh, here you go. But the money that we took to Starbucks, or that we took to Intelligentsia to get a coffee or a donut, or the money that we took to lunch, to go to Prime and Provisions, big time lunch, that $78 or whatever we spent, that money was already earmarked from the beginning of the day. I always think, what about earmarking my sadaqah? That, okay, here's $20, get 5 singles. I know that I'm going to be downtown at some point. I will probably cross paths with people that are indigent. This is the money I have already designated to give them. It's already in my left pocket. I've already, this is for them. And maybe doing a small amount like that on a daily or weekly basis, that, okay, here's $10, I'm going to give this out to people, every week, or becoming a regular donor to a campaign. MashaAllah, orphans were sponsored in the name of my family and I. We feel extremely blessed to know that there's some regular charity that came from this class, MashaAllah, being given on our behalf. And we pray that continues to push us in terms of spiritual elevation and nearness to Allah. So those kinds of things that in the Ramadan happen very intentionally. We're getting together very intentionally. We're praying very intentionally. Additional prayers very intentionally. We're reading from the Quran very intentionally. After Ramadan, those things tend to go back to kind of haphazard things. Oh, I'm sitting on the couch, I got a little time, read a few pages of Quran, why not? What about trying to keep some of that intentionality, right? Even if it's seemingly insignificant, right? Just those things that took place in the Ramadan, trying to keep them going, trying to maintain them somewhat outside the month of Ramadan, and intentionally. This is, perhaps, some of the best advice I've received about trying to keep some of that momentum going, right? It's like in the Ramadan, we're intentional about it. Outside of Ramadan, we just leave it to chance. Maybe I'll read some Quran, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll pray some extra prayers, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll give some sadaqah, maybe I won't, right? But be intentional outside of Ramadan like you were intentional inside of Ramadan, right?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I just wanted to share a suggestion that one of my friends started maybe 4 or 5 Ramadans ago. And I think setting, like, alhamdulillah, like now while we have the momentum to set something up for us, whether it's, I know a lot of organizations like Al Yaqeen Institute and others, like you can do a weekly or a daily or a monthly kind of sadaqah that just continues. But also one of my friends, so she wanted to encourage a group of people to do tahajjud at night. So they created a group, and it was like small, like 5, 6, or 7 people. But the goal was whenever somebody gets up to kind of post that they did. And it's not to like show up, but just to keep that reminder. And mashallah, some people have been consistent every day almost from that 4 or 5 years Ramadan. And some are occasionals, but that space became a reminder that this is something to be intentional about. So I feel like sometimes, finding your support group. So, and I know people who did Hifz Quran, like this Ramadan, they were like, okay, we want to memorize a surah or a chapter in the Quran. So they found a buddy who wanted to do that as well, and they kind of kept each other connected. So.
Yeah, that's a major part of why we experience ease in the Ramadan that we don't experience outside of Ramadan is just that support that you mentioned. It's just, it's people are doing it. Where there's camaraderie, there's community, there's unity. And outside of Ramadan, you kind of feel like you're on your own. Will I pray these additional prayers or not? Will I wake up for tahajjud or not? Will I give charity or not? Right? And maybe creating some of those, intentional attempts to remain accountable to each other will help us to be intentional outside of the month of Ramadan, inshallah. Other things, or I can let you guys go a little early. This is going to be the last that Bismillah. You know what? The issue of idle chatter is, it's a warning. But what is idle chatter? If the intention is idkhal as-surur ala qalb al-mu'min, bringing joy through socializing, joy through, a very light exchange of pleasantries. Hey, how's it going? And maybe talking about something frivolous. Then I think it acquires another intention. And this is not me just saying, oh, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ahabbu al-a'mali ila Allahi ba'd al-fara'id." Idkhal as-surur ala qalb al-mu'min, right? Wa an tudkhila sururan ala qalbi akhik. The most beloved deed to God after the fara'id is bringing joy to the heart of your sister, bringing joy to the heart of your brother. Right? This is something beloved to Allah. So if we intend through our socializing just to put each other at ease and to show each other that, we care about each other, etc., I don't really think that is hurrah or, like idle talk, what used to be called prattle, just prattle, just nonsense. However, because these are hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we do have to be conscious of, at what point is what I'm talking about not about camaraderie or brotherhood or sisterhood or relief or support or aid, or it's just nonsense, right? There is, I as someone that loves to waste time, I know that I've blown hours talking to friends of mine just about nonsense, and it didn't perhaps increase our love for each other any more than we already love each other. We didn't inform each other of anything new, and maybe a few laughs came out of it, but it probably wasn't the best use of his time, certainly wasn't the best use of mine. We probably would have done better to limit that session of wisecracks to 10, 15 minutes and keep it moving. And then it probably would have been idkhal al-surur ala qalb al-mu'min, bringing joy to the heart of a believer. But to keep that thing going for 3 hours, we didn't even have to burden Sprint with that. We didn't have to burden AT&T with that, right? So, there's a limit. There's a limit. But these are things that, like so many other things in Deen, must be assessed subjectively, right? I think one of the misfortunes of, well, I won't call it a misfortune, but one of the misunderstandings of a lot of Muslims that are in community with other people, that, many things that should be personal litmus test, personal, things for personal evaluation, you have people trying to evaluate other people with them. So maybe, my meaningful exchange with an old friend is someone else's vain talk. And maybe my vain talk is their camaraderie building exchange about boats or whatever they're into, or cricket or whatever they're into, right? So these and this is a major, major shift. These are things so that we can check ourselves, not so that we can check other people. Right? It's for me to check myself. Okay, what point did my conversation cease to be purposeful, cease to be meaningful, and just became just nonsense, right? Just balderdash, right? Just nonsense. It's not for someone else to tell me, excuse me, it's Ramzan and right now you're talking nonsense. How do you know what I'm talking? How do you know the purpose of my speech? How do you know how my speech is regarded by the one to whom I'm speaking? Who are you, right? But for me to evaluate myself, for me to think, maybe I am wasting my time a little bit, right? I think it's very important for us to have that those metrics in place so that we can measure, our own, conversations and engagements with, folks that we enjoy talking to. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Well, guys, this is probably the last time that this group will get together in the month of Ramadan. Thanks for sticking with me through this. Mashallah, we had the same good vibe, same good energy. I can always count on Monday night. Oh, sure. Yeah, last question here. Junaid said, was having a conversation with a family member and she was expressing frustration on a few points of gender equality in Islam. Women needing a mahram, 2 witnesses for 1 man. Each point has a lot of depth, which you have covered in previous classes. How does someone respond to this? Shukran. Well, there's a few ways. Junaid. One is that, the purpose of a witness in a legal proceeding, in a legal matter, is not to establish the purpose of a witness. I'm not saying that, right? Follow me. The purpose of a witness is not to establish secondary and tertiary arguments about gender equality. That's not the purpose of a witness. Is probity. That there is someone that is regarded as authoritative, Ramadan brain, authoritative, brain fart, man. I need to drink some water. But there is someone that if there is some dispute, there's some matter, there is a person whose word can be taken not only by the judge presiding over the case, but hopefully by the individuals that are in dispute, so that, you know, this person says, no, it was $10 that you owed me, and the defendant says, no, it was $5. It was $5. What the purpose of a witness is someone who can come forward, say, no, it was $5, and their testimony is accepted by the court and by both parties. The Quran was revealed in a context that took for granted that women mostly occupy domestic roles, right? That women were unfamiliar with the ins and outs of business. Now, one of the things that you must bear in mind to kind of understand, you know, this point is we have replaced gender in our society with specialization, with takhassus. So now it makes no difference if someone is a man or a woman, right? If they're not a lawyer, their review of a contract or their witness of a contract is not regarded with a high degree of evidentiary value. It's like they don't know anything, right? They don't know anything. So I can go to court, say, yeah, I was there. I looked over the contract. It looked good to me. And someone say, do you do intellectual property law? No, I'm just a brother from around the way. No, man, you don't have any authority here, right? You don't have any authority here. The idea then was that if a woman who in that societal milieu was presumed to have less familiarity with business, less familiarity with transactional law and commercial dealings, if she steps forward and says, no, I remember, and of course I was simplifying the example, saying 10 or 5, but could be some, they had all kinds of contracts. We're talking about an agrarian economy where we're trading things that, when this ripens, I'll give you that, and it's going to be this type, and you bring this type forth, and you give me this type of dates, then I'll give you this kind of barley, and then after that, if the harvest comes back short, then I'll give you another payment of barley. And it was, like very involved kinds of transactions. If a woman says, no, it was this, there was room there for the defendant to say, what does she know? What does she know? How would she know? Women, this isn't a situation that women are ordinarily privy to. How would she know? And that's why the Quran mentions, if there's an issue there, then it's 2 women. So that if both of them say, no, she said it and she said it, then that probity is established. But it has nothing to do with, it's much more contingent upon a societal reality that existed, in that context than anything inherent to femininity, inherent to masculinity. Like I said, in our society, it's not about gender. It's about, it's about specialization. You could be a man, woman, if you don't have the specialization, your witness doesn't really hold up in court. You don't know anything about law, right? So the idea is the same. In that context, it was presumed that men had more specialization because of their societal roles. Most Islamic countries, right, in real practice, they have also moved to, in terms of financial and commercial transactions, they have also moved to specialization. If the lawyer reviews the contract, male, female, it's good, right? It's good. That is given more weight than gender. But the idea there is essentially the same about whose testimony will be given weight. It's not anything about femininity, nor is it anything about masculinity, or is it anything about amateurism? In the case of an amateur that is not a specialist, it's just an amateur's testimony is not given weight. And in that context, that separation was made on the basis of gender. and that is somewhat different. In terms of mahram, mahram, mahram means like a male relative, right? A male relative. There are some things that we wish they weren't the way that they are, but they are the way that they are. And the fact of the matter is that when my wife leaves home, she is subject to certain risk that I'm not subject to. Does not mean that a man cannot be accosted, that a man cannot be violated or attacked or brutalized or harmed in some way. Men are accosted and violated and brutalized and harmed every day. But women, and this is still true. I'm not saying like in that context. I'm talking about in our context. It is still certainly true that a woman, when she emerges from her home, assumes certain risk that men don't assume. Now, in our context, the reason why many scholars are willing to grant women, the access to free movement, both internationally, is that many of them say the existence of police and security forces, right, that can be reached, with 3 numbers on a telephone, yaqumu maqam al-mahram, right? It takes the place of a mahram, right? The scholars to say, yeah, women can travel, intercontinentally without a mahram. They said, well, because if there was some issue in which she felt endangered, she does have the recourse of calling law enforcement, or the airport has security, or whatever. But the principle is the same as the traditional or classical principle, that it is the recommendation of the Prophet ﷺ, and in some articulations, the mandate of the Shara, that a Muslim woman moving, and this isn't like going to the store, right? Although the principle still applies. I mean, if it's after Maghrib, I'm just speaking now anecdotally, I have to be very confident in the route, like where my wife is going. I have to feel, I feel like that's relatively safe. I don't think I need to accompany you. And even then, I like to be notified when she's pulling up onto our block so that I can come out and watch her leaving the car and coming to the house. And I like to be, where exactly are you going to be? Right? Not because I want to be some tyrannical overlord, but, I do accept the responsibility of protection. That, this is something I'm responsible. I just want to make sure everything is cool. I've never tried to exert any kind of undue control, and that's all weak and insecure man stuff. But the idea that, I am an extra set of ears, eyes, and hands, hopefully never necessary, to protect you if that is the case, I still think that is a virtue. I don't see that to be something that symbolizes any inherent deficiency in women. Rather, I see that as a recognition of a certain tendency that exists in men. There's a certain tendency that exists in men, and it's regrettable that it's still an issue, but it's still an issue. I mean, I think, and this conversation can go into other lanes, right? But there is, and it's not to say that women don't commit violent crimes against each other and against men. They do, but globally, the vast majority of violent crimes committed against women are committed against them by men. Globally. And the idea that in Islam, in Islamic law, the priority of safety is still treated with a great deal of deference. Yeah, no, I think that's I think that's good. I personally, I still think that's good. Where I worry is that if someone is controlling, if someone is insecure, if someone is, you know, toxically jealous, these rulings can be used to limit a woman's mobility, to limit her freedom, to limit her opportunity to be enriched outside of her home. But to that I say, you know, everything is subject to abuse. You know, I mean, it's almost like the U.S. Constitution. I mean, I think objectively speaking, we can say, you know, it's a pretty good document. I mean, I think, you know, the U.S. Constitution is good. I mean, it's certainly has as a document, you know, a very admirable charter, right? But it can be abused. It can be abused. It has been abused, right? It can be abused, right? I say that as a Black American, it can be abused, right? Doesn't mean we have to get rid of the Constitution because it was abused or because it can be abused. So yes, this is a ruling in Islamic law that can be abused and has been abused by, you know, tyrants and controlling men. The principle, however, of prioritizing women's safety and security, I don't think that's retrograde or backwards or misogynistic at all. Actually, I think it's actually the opposite of those. You know, it's like, see me as a source of your security so that you can, you know, experience the enjoyment of free movement, right? Right? And it's actually statistically proven that women who are accompanied by men, their rate of being attacked, the likelihood of their being attacked goes down significantly, you know, almost 75, 85% reduction, maybe even more. Right? Yes, I made that statistic up. Yes, Ismail knew I made that up as soon as I said it, okay? But, you know, I did hear though, that the rate goes down significantly when she's accompanied by a man. So I mean, these are things that are still a part of our context and experience. I don't know if that helps you, Nate. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So I guess we'll stop there. Wayak. Always good to be with you guys. Alhamdulillah. You know, I don't know, man. Maybe, you know, we did do they did Tarawih at the masjid at DIC. Maybe we'll get back into space. I don't know. I have to talk to you know, Sana and Salman and see what they're thinking. But I would love to get back into space and do something a little more intentional than these open discussions. But you guys have been riding with me, man, and I thank you. And I really, really do love all of you as brothers and sisters, and appreciate you giving me the space to, you know, come in and continue my work with DIC without kind of the pressure of putting together a class every week and teaching on Zoom, teaching material on Zoom, which, you know, can be cumbersome. So this has just been a relaxing session since the onset of COVID. And, you know, I really appreciate that. At the same time, you know, I do want you guys to benefit. You know, I have noticed some of the lulls and the no questions. And so maybe we'll have to figure out, you know, a way we can do something intentional so that you guys feel like you're benefiting from our time together. While at the same time, you know, recognizing the constraints of the medium, inshallah. So, jazakumullahu khair, wassalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak, Eid Mubarak. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.